Mm.
Okay.
Eric, can the resizing be made a preset?
You may be able to make it a preset. I don't know how to do it. I'm sorry to tell you, but it's yes, you can make it an action. Do you know about Photoshop actions?
I'm really green to Photoshop. That's why
Okay.
I'm like asking more of the
Yeah,
Lightroom
yeah.
questions. So I'm here to learn how I can move over because it's really powerful what I'm seeing. It's much better than Lightroom in many ways.
It is. And Lightroom didn't exist. I started learning Photoshop when it was before it had a number behind it. It was just
Mhm.
Photoshop. So when Lightroom came out, I went, oh, that's kind of a, poor man's Photoshop. So I never really, I know quite a bit about Lightroom, but I never really learned it in depth. But there's something in Photoshop called actions. And if you click on and create an action, it will take exactly what I just did and make that one click.
Oh, it's like a mini script that you could write. Maybe it's creating something at the back.
Exactly. It just follows the steps that you did and it
Gotcha.
makes a preset for you.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Eric, I I do see there's one window on the high speed rail.
Yeah.
Is that something deliberately left over, or
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. It did not get,
It,
well, maybe it didn't get selected when I did.
It wasn't
it,
selected.
uh,
Okay. It wasn't part of the original selection.
okay, got it.
Now, if you don't know, good question, Jimmy. Let's go back and see if we can find it. You have a history tool. It has to be turned on, so it's under Windows and
Hmm.
History. Uh, so Window and History, I keep it turned on because I want to go back. So I can go back like 100 portions. So let's see if, let's see. Yeah, I can go back to here. Yeah, see it's not selected.
Got it.
See that window?
Hmm.
So I need to take my little, uh, oops, wrong tool. I need to go back to my quick selection tool.
Put a picture of Gavin Newsom in there so I can learn how to do a speed train.
Yeah, yeah, that's money down the speed train drain. Okay, so now it is selected. And like I said, the history is very helpful in fixing things like this.
I
And
see.
And this is, I'm pushing the Alt key on a PC or the Option key just to clean up some of these things that I do want as part of my selection. Whoops. All right, so all those things are in there. I could add these posts if I have a small brush. So I need to keep the brush pretty small. And by the way, you have all these settings for the brush's hardness, spacing. This is something you're going to have to spend time with and learn, not necessarily intuitive.
So, Eric, when you click that select inverse, it actually went all the way back and removed all of the changes that were after that select inverse, correct?
Correct. So I went back in time with the history tool all the way back uh, before I made any of those changes.
So, would you have to repeat all of the actions that happened after the inverse,
You would, but what I would have done is I would have just saved it.
selected it again?
Yeah, I would have just saved it, then gone back into my history, fixed whatever I needed to fix, and then I could bring it back in.
Oh, you're making a virtual copy of the history? or something similar?
No,
What do
no. What I'm doing is, so this quick selection, so let's see if I can get back to where I was. No, it's not gonna let me. But if I had wanted to, I could go back at the point where I said, oh, that wasn't selected, that little window.
Yeah.
All I needed to do at that point was save the image as it is. And I could select that little window and blur it individually in the file. That would be the fastest way to do it.
Got it. Okay.
Or I could go back in time. Once I've saved it, I go back in time in the history file. Go back in time in the history file and find out where the mistake was, fix it, and then I would have to redo everything that I did since then.
Is
you
there
know,
any way to capture all the things you did after and just kind of
no,
copy delete?
no, that's a too big a wish. But what you could do is once you came back and fixed that window and fixed any other little details that you wanted to, then I could take this selection and I could right click on it and layer it via copy, let's say. I could do it layer via cut too. And now it's on a separate layer here. And I could open up the other image that I saved and drag this on top of it, and it would match perfect.
Oh, yeah, okay, cool.
I
Just-
see. I see. That makes sense.
Another workaround, yeah.
Yeah.
Photoshop is somewhat forgiving, but it takes a long time to learn all this stuff because there are 10 ways to do everything. There's not just one way to do anything.
And there's 12 ways to do it wrong.
Yeah, that's true too. So that's made a dramatic difference in Timming's original image.
Yes, especially the front end.
Yeah. So let me do, I'm going to open up, let's see here. Let me save this first. I'm going to file, I'm going to save it as an R file, which just means it's been retouched.
So Eric, do you recommend saving these as PSD files or flatten and save as like?
So good question. Actually, you should always save these, layers or not, as TIFF files. And why a TIFF file? Because a TIFF file has all the same number of colors as the original raw file that you took. It's 16.9 million colors.
And PSD doesn't?
PSD does not keep all the same colors information. It wants to do it in Photoshop's version of it. And I don't know what the count is. Maybe it's 12 million, but it's not exactly the same as the raw.
Really?
So,
Okay.
TIFF. And also, if you go to have this printed by someone, they're going to request a TIFF. Is going to be their first layer or their first request.
So did I hear that correctly, Eric, that if you store it as a .tiff file,
Yeah.
then it also saves the layers?
Yes.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. Same
I
as
thought only PSD files save layers.
right. That's a common misconception.
Nice.
But as you can see up here, I've changed the name IMGR TIFF up top here, but you can see my layers are still here on the right.
Yeah, I think TIFF is also lossless compression too, I think when you
Yeah. So let me see if it shows that dialog
It,
box.
it gives you a warning that the TIFF file is bigger because of the layers if you save it,
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
you always want that, right?
Yes, you do. You do. Okay. So what we've tried to do here is create this pan and motion blur thing, and that the motion blur comes in handy for a lot of things. And one of them is, for instance, if you're a birder, people taking pictures of birds. So let me open up a file here, and you won't be able to see it because Zoom doesn't support it, but I'm going to try to find a shot recently.
Hey, Eric, while you're pulling that up, is there a anti-motion blur, like an opposite?
Sharpen, you mean?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
things that are out of focus. I mean, other than the Topaz tool, but then in Photoshop, is there a sharpening way?
Yep, I'll show you that real quickly when we're,
Nice.
as soon as I get this opened. Okay, so here's a bird, but let's go back and I'll show you the sharpen tool. So I want to go back. I'm going to go back in my history so I can get back to that selection. Okay, there's my train selected. And I'm going to do select inverse, which is everything but the train in this particular case. And there's filter and there's sharpen. And there's all these different choices. So I'm going to tell you really quick, forget the first four. The only one you want is unsharp mask. And the other ones are just bad attempts at trying to make sharpening. So you can see it made the image a little brighter. I don't know if you noticed that, because it brings the highlights up, and that's part of the sharpening process. So here's the techniques on this. So I'm going to go to no sharpening. So this is the starting point. All these sliders should be over here. But what you want to do is 100, it goes up to like 4 or 5, goes to 500. 100 is safe. You can do 100 and it'll sharpen things a little and without pixelating anything. The radius is important. So the smaller the radius, the better your sharpening is going to be without pixelating anything. The larger your radius, and you'll see it in when I let go here. See what it did? Made all these highlight areas are very pixelated. You can't see it on your screen maybe, but could you see the difference when I made the radius? Here's the radius before, and there's the radius after. So it just over contrasts everything.
Mhm.
So I keep the radius at 0.1 pixel, which is tiny. And because I don't want to change these things, right? Here's another way of approaching it. So that's sharpening tool, right? I'm going to show you something that looks familiar to you.
Does the sharpening apply only to the selected layer?
Only in this case,
Oh, the opposite. I think it's the other one. It's not applying to the train.
exactly. It's
Oh, gotcha,
only
gotcha.
applying to the background. I could also inverse it again. I could do select inverse, and now it's just the train, and I could do filter sharpen, and I could sharpen the train. And the train, since it's has geometric shapes on it and that sort of thing, you could push that up higher in sharpness and maybe even radius. Let's see. Yeah, you could bring it up like that and it'll make it appear sharper.
The name is like super counterintuitive.
It is unsharp mask. Yeah, no, it's very it's a dumb name for a smart tool. So I'll show you one other way to do some of this as well. And this is something you're already familiar with, is that you're in Photoshop, you've got this image, and over here, I've got a sharpen tool, which is a brush. So you can just, if I only want to sharpen the concrete, I can only sharpen the concrete. And you can make the strength, the critical thing here is looking up here at your options. The tool is on the left-hand side, and that's where it defaults to, and that's where I always keep it. And by the way, underneath it, there's a blur tool and a smudge tool. But let's stick with the sharpen tool we'll get to the other tools at some other class. But I'm going to bring the strength way up, 100%. And then I'm going to hit this concrete again with this. And you're going to start to see a little bit of texture. You're going to see how it blew out this bush right here? I'll go back. That's the way the bush should be. But if you put too much sharpening on it, it blurs it out. And that's all creating all these highlights that you don't want. But where it was helpful is it created all these stains coming down the concrete, which were very subtle before and are much clearer now. Not that you want stains on your concrete, but where it comes in really handy is where you have wood textures in an image. And you want to bring out the grain. You want to bring out the depth of it. This sharpen tool is very handy for that. And then the last thing I'm going to show you is something that I started to show you a second ago, is that I said you'd be very familiar with it. If you're a Lightroom user, you'll know about filter, Camera Raw filter. And Camera Raw is essentially the developed, well, I should put it the other way around. In Lightroom, the developed tool is Camera Raw. In Photoshop, it's Camera Raw. They're the same. Photoshop has a few more bells and whistles and a few more capabilities, but essentially it's the same tool. So I'm going to go to Effects here. And instead of saying sharpening, it says clarity. And so you can hit it with texture and clarity. So I'm going to show you texture, clarity, and dehaze. And I recommend that you use all three of them together when you're modifying an image. And look at the texture first, since it's on top. And I'm going to drag that. And it's going to be subtle, but you can see that it did a little sharpening. It did a little hard edge to a few things. So I'm going to take it back to where it was. And let me make it larger so you can see. So take a look at like the windows on the train, for example. Some of the windows get a little dirty looking. Let's see. Look at the concrete instead. You can see it more clearly. And you can see what I do as I move it on the concrete. It makes it darker. And then clarity. I'm just going to use extremes here just to show you how the tool works.
Eric, one quick clarification. If you had a layer selected and then you activated the Camera Raw, does it put a mask and do only that or not?
It would only that layer.
Only that. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, it's like a mask with like all the options, I think.
Exactly.
Nice.
Now, so I will say this again in another session, but I almost never use a mask these days. And why would that be? It's because the selection tools have gotten so good that I don't need a mask. I can just select what I want and make the changes right there. versus making a mask and having to keep that in mind separately, et cetera, et cetera. I rarely use masks. So
Really, that's amazing.
it saves so much time. Now I'm going to show you, like I said, this is an extreme example. I've got everything up at 100%. Now let's look at dehaze. And in particular, look at what it does. It almost makes it like a 1960s Kodachrome that wasn't processed properly, you know. It puts dirt in the sky. The dehaze does some interesting things. And I'm going to bring it back. It can brighten things up, but it's really there to kind of add a few highlights to an image. So I'm going to bring this back to,
So do you use it to take out noise and other things, or is it, I mean, there's really not any haze in this.
uh, in this particular case, there's a little haze in the sky in the background,
Yeah.
but it's not uh, secluded enough. The trees are in the way, and other dehaze is going to have more trouble with it. If it was just a sky with light clouds in it, I would select the sky and then I would use dehaze, and those clouds will come out. You'll get texture and shape around those clouds.
Okay.
So it's a very handy tool to have. So that's a few enhancements that have been made right there. So I'm going to say, okay, it looks all right. It may be a little over processed. And then what I'm going to do is show you, let's go back and I'll talk to you about, remember we talked about motion blur or different things. Venu, what was your question again? Because you were talking about,
I was more interested in sharpening of this though. So I think I definitely see where that's gonna get used.
yeah, we were talking about backgrounds though, and how to, birds in flight for using motion blur can be really interesting. So I'll show you this one from Mercury, by the way. And I do this every time just to scare people, is that's the remove tool. And it's processing right now. And it's going to do a heck of a job of getting rid of any sense that Mercury was involved in this
So this
photograph.
is why you want that. This is your advertising that new content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Got it.
content credentials, it's called. Adobe has not released it yet. I'm on the beta list as soon as they do. But once they do, then you will go online, submit your image online. Adobe will process it for you online and send it back to you within a minute. And it will be embedded with your information so that if anybody tries to use your image, you can then go after them. So
And
Sorry, go ahead.
it won't be affected by the remove tool.
no, that's right.
Also, is there a plan to actually save some of the AI changes into the file signature?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
there is. Okay,
that'll be part of content credentials.
I see.
It'll give a small log saying that 3 AI tools were used or not or something. So it's a way to also identify AI being used in photographs.
Interesting.
Okay, so I'm going to select my subject here. Okay, so there's Mercury's owl. Now I'm going to do select inverse. And it's only the background. The owl is safe. As a matter of fact, if I wanted to, I could go, I'll just do that. I'll select the inverse. So I'll go back to the owl. I'm going to right click on this owl.
Good dog.
I think I'm going to right click on this owl. Oh yeah, you have to be in the selection tool. And I'm going to layer it via cut. And you can see, look over here at the layers. It created a mask for me, right? And it put the bird on a separate layer. So now they're separated. And why do I want to show you this? Because I'm going to show you the filter, blur, motion blur, and I'm going to create an effect with this. And I'm going to say, okay. So now you could I could put any background in here I want, by the way, because of the birds on a different layer now. I could put green grass and a jungle there, and then I could apply the blur as I wanted to in order to make a new effect of a background.
So you only applied the blur to the background.
Correct. And the bird is still in its original state.
Got it. Okay.
And it, in this case, I had that hole there, which was white. And now that's completely gone because I have an extreme blur put on there.
Can you now sharpen the bird a little bit more?
I'm sorry, you wanted me to make it larger? Is that what you said?
So
No,
sharpen.
sharpen it, sharpen the eyes and beak especially.
Yeah, so what needs to be done here, and the best thing for it is Topaz AI, Sharpen AI, which is like 35 bucks. I don't even have it because I use Photoshop to do all my sharpening, but it's a better tool than Photoshop for this. So I'm going to use,
Can you do it on a layer, or you have to?
no. Okay, so I'll switch to the owl layer. So that's highlighted now. And then I'm going to make my tool small. And I'm going to bring my hardness up on the sharpening tool.
But you can't use Topaz on a layer, can you? You have to export it and bring it back in.
Uh,
Or is there a plugin? No.
I don't know the answer to
I had
that.
an early version. It didn't support plugins.
If it's a plugin to Photoshop, you might be able to do it on a separate, on an individual layer.
That'd be cool.
I'll have to try that with Kelly.
I think I just tried that. It does allow a layer to be exported into. Yeah. So
Good. That makes
it's really cool, actually.
That's very cool. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to try to sharpen this. So I'm going to make it larger so we can just see that eye and look at the eye a little more carefully. So we'll see what the sharpen tool does. We'll start with that. So I'm going to do a little bit of sharpening. It's starting to create some pixels right away,
Yeah.
which I don't want.
Would you have the hardness up pretty high though, right?
I did, and that was because it actually works here on the beak just fine, but let me reduce the hardness and see if that helps with the eye a little bit. Yeah, it did. So that worked. And you could also increase some of the, starting to get a few pixels in here too. So maybe not.
Yeah, it's doing artifacts.
Yeah. But the eye worked pretty well. Now, the one thing that's cheating, but I'm sure people do this. I'm not a nature photographer, so I don't have any problem with doing this because I don't compete in nature. But I'm going to choose 2 pixels for my feather. I'm going to do a round selection. And 2 pixels is a very small feather, by the way. And that highlight for the owl in the eye is not that great. So I'm going to do image adjust, brightness and contrast. And I'm going to increase the brightness of that part of the eye. I don't want to be fake, but I did a little bit. try it again.
Yeah. It's not the same as capturing the highlight.
No,
Use your pencil. Use your pencil with a little bit of off-white in it.
yeah, there you go. Well, now that worked.
I'm good at cheating.
So you can see that you can see the eye much better now. Well, we did a few extra things that I wasn't going to do, but anyway, that's the bottom line for things. You learned a lot about panning and about motion blur and how to make an image better, more contrasty, less contrasty. But I'll get into more tools in other sessions, but it's a start. So anyway,
Hey Eric, thank you so much. I was gonna make one request.
okay.
So I've always been intimidated by the merging of the layers and the
Uh-huh.
opacity, like the one it says normal and then opacity on the layers at the
Yeah.
top, like how they get merged in. So is it possible to maybe discuss it like in one of the future sessions, those options and what they mean?
Yeah, I'll show you one quick thing because I already showed Betty had asked that question just before you got here in
Ah,
in the meeting. And so what I'm doing here is there's the layers unselected, nothing is selected. So I select this one and I select the second one. So you're asking how to merge them together?
no, I think the place where it says normal.
He's asking about the opacity and the
Oh, up
percentage.
there. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are they being combined? The
Uh,
blend.
So I think it controls the effect of collapsing all of them onto the canvas, right?
Well,
no,
it actually controls the blending.
Yeah, correct. The blend options is what I've always found it very confusing.
yeah. So those are really all kinds of things that you can choose and see what works best for your image. I don't think any of these are going to work for the image, by the way. But when you're doing something that you want to intentionally, if let's say there were clouds in the background and you wanted that owl to be flying through the clouds, you could use overlay. And you'll see people do like double exposure images. They're using overlay in many cases. So two different layers. The top layer uses overlay, and then it makes it appear that the bottom layer is coming through some degree.
And use it a lot in compositing to see how two different things combine.
Yeah, and where the edges of things are is how I use it often. So let me just go through all of these just to, I guess you could turn it into a black and white by keeping the luminosity. Um, so keeping it normal, but here's something really interesting. The opacity is to create somewhat of that overlay effect that we had before, right? I can make an image appear to be part of or take it away with the opacity. But where I used it is, for instance, if I put that owl's on a separate layer now. If I still had that original owl underneath there, and I wanted to make this owl smaller, and it's on top, right? So right now, let's assume, oh, let me just do it. I'm gonna merge these back together.
Or just make a copy of the owl and
I'll just merge them back together, and then I'll make a copy of the owl again. So I'm gonna come back here, and I'm gonna select subject, which is the owl. And then I'm gonna layer via copy this time. Okay, so what if I wanted to make this owl, and I had the background with the owl on it already, but what if I wanted to make this thing smaller? I'm gonna do Control or Command T, whichever, and all you're doing is pulling this down, and proportionately it's now smaller. but I have a problem because I have the other owl behind it. And in this case, this is not a perfect example, but this is just to tell you why something could happen. I could change the opacity of this top owl, and it shows me what's underneath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the background, and I'm going to clone part of this. This isn't the perfect example. I was hoping to be able to, whoops. And Control Z or Command Z is your best friend, by the way, to get rid of things that you don't want. Let's go with a smaller brush and softer. Anyway, the idea is that here's a perfect example of when you would want to use something like opacity. I did this recently for some friends of mine. They had a family photo, and one person was not in the family photo. And we wanted to add them into the photograph. And when I got the picture of the family friend that was not originally in it, I outlined them, I dropped them in the photograph, and then I used opacity to erase parts of the other person that was on the end so that I could
Oh, I
sneak,
see. I see.
so I could sneak them behind them.
I see.
So there's all kinds of uses of where you change the opacity so you can see the outline of what you want to keep and then erase other things. But
Perfect. Perfect.
anyway, this was not a good example for what I was trying to talk about, but we'll go back. Oh, the last thing I wanted to show you was I wanted to show you this, and then I'm going to file open. I wanted to show you Chimming's his original piece,
Nice.
and we'll show it next to show them side by side here.
That's one thing Lightroom does a better job of.
Yeah, it has a little tool that you can do it automatically, unfortunately, and in Photoshop, it's not very good.
Very nice. Thank you, Eric.
But anyway, you can see the difference.
Yeah, no, beautiful.
All right, everyone, we'll see you in a month, and I will send out links to this recording on YouTube, and you can go there. And you can also, when you're there, you can look at my channel, and there's probably 20 other sessions that work on different types of tools, so you can see those as well.
I'll send you part 2 of the recording
Okay.
tomorrow morning.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
all right.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Eric. Thank you.
Good night,
Thank you.
everyone.
A great class. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.